Chapter 6. The First Two Finders. The very next day, the first golden ticket was found. The finder was a boy called Augustus Gloop, and Mr. Bucket's evening newspaper carried a large picture of him on the front page. The picture showed a 9-year-old boy who was so enormously large he looked as though he had been blown up by a powerful pump. Great flabby folds of his skin bulged out from every part of his body, and his face was like a monstrous ball of dough with two small, greedy, curranty eyes peering out upon the world. The town in which Augustus Gloop lived, the newspaper said, had gone wild with excitement over their hero. Flags were flying from the school, and children had been given a holiday from school, and a parade was being organized in honor of the famous youth. I just knew Augustus would find a golden ticket, his mother had told the newspaper. He eats so many candy bars a day, it's almost impossible for him not to find one. Eating is his hobby, you know. That's all he's interested in. But still, that's better than being a hooligan and shooting off zip guns and things like that in his spare time, isn't it? And what I always say, he wouldn't go on eating like this. He does unless he needed nourishment, would he? It's all vitamins anyways. What a thrill to be with him for Mr. Wonka's marvelous factory. We're just as proud as can be. And that is Augustus Gloop. What a revolting woman, said Grandma Josephine. And what a repulsive boy, said Grandma Georgina. Only 4 golden tickets left, said Grandpa George. I wonder who will get those. And now the whole country, indeed the whole world, seemed suddenly to be caught up in a mad candy-buying spree. Everybody searching frantically for those precious remaining tickets. Fully grown women were seen going into sweet shops and buying 10 candy bars at a time, and then tearing off the wrappers on the spot and peering eagerly underneath for a glint of golden paper. Children were taking hammers, smashing their piggy banks, and running out to the shops with handfuls of money. In one city, a famous gangster robbed a bank of $5,000 and spent the whole lot on candy bars the same afternoon. And when the police entered his house to arrest him, they found him sitting on the floor amidst mountains of candy, ripping off wrappers with the blade of a long dagger. In far-off Russia, a woman called Charlotte Russe claimed to have found the second ticket, but it turned out to be a very clever fake. In England, the famous scientist, Professor Foulbody, invented a machine which could tell you at once, without opening the wrapper of a candy bar, whether or not there was a golden ticket hidden underneath it. The machine had a mechanical arm that shot out with tremendous force and grabbed hold of anything that had the slightest bit of gold inside it. And for a moment, it looked like the answer to everything. But unfortunately, while the professor was showing the machine to the public at the candy counter of a large department store, the mechanical arm shot out and made a grab for the gold filling in the back tooth of the Duchess, who was standing nearby. This was an ugly scene, and the machine was smashed by the crowd. Suddenly, on the day before Charlie Bucket's birthday, the newspaper announced the second golden ticket had been found. The lucky person was a small girl named Veruca Salt, who lived with her rich parents in a city far away. Once again, Mr. Bucket's evening paper carried a big picture of the finder. She was sitting between her beaming father and mother in the living room of their house, waving a golden ticket above her head, grinning from ear to ear. Veruca's father, Mr. Salt, had eagerly explained to the newspaper exactly how they found the ticket. You see, fellers, he said, as soon as my little girl told me she simply had to have one of those golden tickets, I went out to the town and started buying all the Wonka candy bars I could lay my eyes on. Thousands of them. I must have bought hundreds of thousands. Then I had to get them loaded onto trucks and sent directly in my own factory. I'm in the peanut business, you see, and I've got about 100 women working for me over at my joint, shelling peanuts and roasting and salting. That's what they do all day, these women. They sit there shelling peanuts, and I say, okay, girls, so now on you stop shelling peanuts, and you start shelling the wrappings off these candy bars instead. And they did. And I had every worker in the place yanking this paper off of the bars from morning till night. But 3 days went by, we had no luck. Oh, it was terrible. My little Veruca got more and more upset each day. Every time I went home, she would scream at me, where's my golden ticket? I want my golden ticket. And she would lie on the floor for hours, kicking and yelling in the most disturbing way. Well, sir, I hated to see my little girl feeling unhappy, so I vowed I would keep up the search until I got her what she wanted. And then suddenly, on the evening of the 4th day, one of my woman workers yelled, I've got it, a golden ticket. And I said, give it to me quick. And she did. And I rushed home and gave it to my darling Veruca. And now she's all smiles. And we would have a happy home again. That's even worse than the other boy, said Grandma Josephine. She needs a good spanking, said Grandma Georgina. And that is Veruca Salt. I don't think the girl's father played it quite fair, Grandpa, do you? Charlie murmured. He spoils her, said Grandpa Joe. And no good can come from spoiling a child like that, Charlie. You mark my words. Come to bed, dear, said Charlie's mother. Tomorrow's your birthday, don't forget that, so I expect you've got to be up early to open your present. A Wonka candy bar, whispered Charlie. It's a Wonka candy bar, isn't it? Yes, my love, his mother said. Of course it is. Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if I found the third golden ticket inside? Charlie said. Bring it here when you get it, Grandpa Joe said. Then we can all watch you taking off the wrapper. Chapter 7. Charlie's Birthday. Happy birthday! Cried the four old grandparents as Charlie came into the room early the next morning. Charlie smiled nervously and sat down on the edge of the bed. He was holding the present, his only present, very carefully wrapped in his two hands. Wonka's Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight, the wrapper said. The four old people, two at each end of the bed, propped themselves up on their pillows and stared with his anxious eyes at the candy bar in Charlie's hands. Mr. and Mrs. Bucket came in and stood at the foot of the bed, watching Charlie. The room became silent. Everybody was waiting now for Charlie to start opening his present. Charlie looked down at the candy bar. He ran his fingers slowly back and forth along the length of it, stroking it, and the shiny paper wrappers made a tiny, little sharp, crackly sounds in the room. Then Mrs. Bucket said gently, "You mustn't be disappointed, my dear, if you don't find what you're looking for underneath the wrapper. You really can't expect to be as lucky as all that." "She's quite right," Mr. Bucket said. Charlie didn't say anything. "After all," Grandma Josephine said, "in the whole wide world there are only 3 tickets left to be found." "The thing to remember," Grandma Georgina said, "is whatever happens, you'll still have a bar of candy." "Wonka's Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight," cried Grandpa George. "It's the best of them all. You're just going to love it." "Yes," Charlie whispered. "I know. Just forget about those old golden tickets and enjoy the candy," said Grandpa Joe. "Why don't you do that now?" They all knew it was ridiculous to expect this one little candy bar to have a magic ticket inside it, and they were trying as gently and as kindly as they could to prepare Charlie for the disappointment. But there was one other thing that the grown-ups also knew. It was that there was a small chance, however small it was, that there was the candy bar. The chance had to be there. The particular candy bar had as much chance as any other of having a golden ticket. And this is why the grandparents and parents in the room were actually just as tense and as excited as Charlie, although they were pretending to be very calm. "You better go ahead and open it, or you'll be late for school," Grandpa Joe said. "You might as well get it over with," said Grandpa George. "Open it, my dear," said Grandma Georgina. "Please open it. You're making me very jumpy." Very slowly, Charlie's fingers began to tear open one corner of the wrapping paper. The old people in the bed all leaned forward, craning their necks. Then, suddenly, as if he couldn't bear the suspense, Charlie tore the wrapper right down the middle and onto his lap a light brown chocolate bar. There was no sign of a golden ticket anywhere. "Well, that's that," said Grandpa Joe. "It's just what we expected." Charlie looked up. 4 kind old faces were watching him intently from the bed. He smiled at them, a small sad smile, and then shrugged his shoulders and picked up his candy bar and held it out to his mother. "Here, Mother, have a bite. We'll share it. I want everybody to taste it." "No, no," his mother said. All the others cried, "We wouldn't dream of it. It's all yours." "Please," begged Charlie, turning around and offering it to Grandpa Joe, but neither he nor anyone else would take a tiny bite. "It's time to go to school," Mrs. Bucket said, putting an arm on Charlie's skinny shoulders. "Come on, or you'll be late." And that's Charlie opening the chocolate bar. And that was Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. Tune in next time for Chapter 8 and Chapter 9.